Hi guys. Up until now, we saw many things. First, we talked about version control systems, what they are, and why do we even need them. After that, we moved on to see a version control system called Git, which is very popular. We understood its basic workflow, and we even tried to use it using Git Bash or the command line interface. Since that was not enough in itself, we took a step forward and talked about GitHub and how we can deal with remote repositories using GitHub. We also saw what branches were and how we can use them to our advantage. Now, since we are equipped with all of that knowledge, it's time for us to take a step back and kind of have a look at the best practices which will help us collaborate on projects way efficiently or in a better manner. In this video, we'll talk about two things. First is best practices. What are some of the good practices which you should follow when you're working with multiple people on a project? And the second is what an issue tracker is, what an issue tracker is used for, and how you can use it to your advantage. When it comes to best practices, let's start by talking about documenting. Now, documenting your code is really important. You can do it using comments, or you can do it by writing some descriptive comment messages, as you must have seen previously in this series. Now, why is this really important, and why are we so obsessed about documentation? Well, because now you might understand all the changes that you're making, but if you're coming back to the code, let's say 5 months after everything's done, and you want to make some changes and you want to understand why a specific line of code was written, that will be very difficult if there was no documentation, if there was no comment, or if there was no commit message in place. So there's that. After that, let's say that some people want to have a look at your Git repository, which is hosted on GitHub. Now, one of the main things that they look at is the readme.metadata file, because this file will basically describe your entire project. Why have you used certain algorithms? Why did you even start working on this project? What was the problem statement? And if you really want to get help from others, then it's really important that you write a descriptive readme file, because that would give all of those people a better idea of what you're doing and why you're doing all of those things in the first place. Now let's talk about pull requests. Say you're having a Git repository and people are trying to contribute to it. Now it's really important that you reply promptly to all the pull requests that you're getting, because if you don't, then you might discourage outside help, which could really prove helpful. On the other hand, if you just accept every change that people are suggesting without even understanding it, then you might add some extra complexity to your code, and then you might not even be able to fix it since you don't understand the things which you added. So it's advisable that you don't accept every change and don't reject every change either, and understand all the changes that you accept. Finally, it's really important that you establish a medium of communication between all the contributors, because that will be helpful for efficient contribution by all of those people, and that will ultimately make working on the project way easier than it would have otherwise. Now, when working on a project with multiple people, you can face two problems. First is deciding who's going to work on what. Now, if a small group of people is working on the project, then that does not seem like an actual problem, because you can establish communication in the group and decide each individual's responsibility. But as that group starts to grow, it becomes difficult to keep track of each person's responsibility, or each person's task rather. This is one problem. And the second problem is when all of your individual tasks are done and when you integrate your code, there might be some loophole in your code or some bugs which you didn't foresee when you were working on it, but now you have them in the program. This is where issue trackers come in. First, they help you keep track of who's working on what, and second, they help you create a new issue and then assign that issue to a person from the group. Now that would mean that that specific individual is now working on that feature, so no one else has to do it. Let's have a look at that. To demonstrate how issues work, I'm using a repository which I made recently, which is a web application that has an autocomplete or an auto-suggest feature in it. GitHub in itself has an issue tracker, and you can use it by going to this issues section over here. Using this issue tracker, I can keep track of who's working on what, and I can even create issues which I feel that if I feel that there's something wrong in the code, then I can create an issue for it, or something wrong in the repository, then I can create an issue for it. Then I can assign that issue to someone who is one of the contributors or the collaborators, and that would imply that that specific individual is working on it so that no one else has to do it now. If we have a look at the code, then you can see that there are multiple files which are which a sort of a report of the entire project, and I don't want multiple files for that. So I feel that that is one issue of this repository. So what I can do is I can go to issues, I can create a new issue, and I can give the title remove unnecessary files. Remove unnecessary report files. And I can submit this new issue. Load the issues section that would reflect an issue we just created. And as you can see over here, it has a specific ID which will be useful when we are committing it. So I'll explain about that when we are making the commit. So as you can see, the ID for this is 1, as this is the first issue. Now, if I open this issue, it will show me the entire content of that issue, which says that we have to remove unnecessary report files. Now, okay, that's good. So to do that, the first thing which I'll do is I'll assign this issue to myself, because now I am the one who is going to fix this issue. I created this issue before just for demonstration purposes, but it is not absolutely necessary for the person who's creating the issue to solve it. Okay, so for now, I'll just assign this issue to myself. And now it will mean that this issue has been assigned to Chirag Vaswani. So if we go back over here, then we can now keep track of this ID and work with it. So what I'll do now is in VS Code, I'll open the files or the folder or the directory for this repository. And as you can see over here, I have multiple report files, so I'll get rid of all of them. So let's just delete it. Next, I'll delete this report as well. Okay, so this was all that I wanted to do. So now what I can do is I can check the status of the repository. As you can see that I have deleted 2 files, report.pages and report.pdf. Now what I'll do is I'll add them, or rather I'll just commit them with an A flag, which will add them automatically while I'm committing. Editor for me to write the commit message. So I'll just click I to start inserting, and I'll write remove report files. And at the end of towards the end, I'll write closes #1. Now, why am I writing this? If you can recall, the ID of that issue was 1. So what will happen is when I'll push this commit, it will see the commit message, and this closes #1 will prompt GitHub to check for an issue with ID 1. And since I've already written that the commit that I'm pushing is closing that issue, so it will automatically close that issue over there. So there's no need for the person who has started the issue to close it. So I'll just save this now. Okay, so the commit was made. So now if I push this code, as you can see, the push was made. And if I refresh this, you can see that there are no open issues because that issue was now closed. closed 12 seconds ago. So yeah, that was it about issue trackers. So yeah guys, that was it for this video. We saw what the best practices were and we saw what an issue tracker was. And if you really like this video, then you can go ahead and like it, share and subscribe to this channel. And if you're facing any issues, then we can use YouTube's own issue tracker, which is the comment section. So I'd really recommend that and I'd encourage that you use the comment section if you're facing any issues as well. So thank you so much for watching.